Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you to the CCRA Zoning Committee meeting. I just wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded. I'm going to be reading you a statement about that, and then we'll get on with introductions and its description of the case. So please be advised that this Zoom meeting will be recorded for future public viewing. And by attending this Zoom meeting, you hereby automatically consent to being recorded during the meeting, and hereby automatically consent to the Center City Residents Association use of your image and voice recording for all purposes. If you do not consent to being recorded during this Zoom meeting, please voice your concern at the host at the beginning of the meeting or do not join the meeting. Thank you. All right. So again, welcome everyone. Just a few notes of introduction. CCRA is our civics association, and we encourage everyone here, if you are not already a member and you're a resident within our area, to become a member. There are several benefits to being a member, one of which is being notified of all the public proposed zoning changes within our area. Our boundaries extend from South Street to JFK, Broad Street to the Schuylkill River. Just want to say a little bit about how we're going to work the meeting this evening. First, we will have the applicants present. We will ask all the applicants to address the specific refusals or referrals, and we will ask for no interruption as the presentation proceeds. After the presentation, the zoning committee will have a chance to ask questions, and after the committee's questions are completed, we will open the meeting to the community. What we will do after we hear from the applicant is that we will vote in closed session in one of three ways. We will either vote to oppose, to not oppose, or to oppose with provisos. Just so you know, the CCR never votes in favor of any application, and our decision will be mailed to the council person, the zoning board of appeals, and to the applicant. So no matter how we decide, if you are concerned with a project, we strongly recommend that you attend the ZBA hearing. And that's the best way to make your own concerns known. Okay, so I think we can start. We only have one case this evening. I'll go ahead and read the refusal, and then we'll kick it off to the presenters. This case is for 327 South 16th Street, and it is a refusal that is based on uses allowed in residential districts. In accordance with section 602-3 in the Philadelphia Zoning Code, a minimum of 360 square feet of lot area is required per dwelling unit for the first 1,440 square feet of lot area, and 480 square feet per dwelling unit for lot area in excess of 1,440 square feet, whereas 8 dwelling units are proposed requiring 3,360 square feet of lot area, but the existing lot is only 1,788 square feet. So I believe with that, we can go ahead with the presentation from the applicant.
Thank you, Janice. Everyone, good evening. My name is Justin Crick. I am counsel for the owner of the property, Blueprint Real Estate Investment LLC. The applicant is Betty Mon, who is an expediter and consultant on the project. But just for clarity, it is the owner's application here tonight before you. As the refusal was just read, you can tell that we are seeking approval for this RM1 property for an 8-unit building. And while we recognize that there's a square footage land area concern, we believe that the building square footage fully supports additional units, as well as does the somewhat nature of the neighborhood and projects that the applicant has handled and worked with before. I would like to, if possible, I don't know if you're sharing the screen, Janice, or if you'd like me to do that, to just provide everyone with the documents and materials to show them the intended design.
It's all yours.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay. So we already did go through the refusal. I'm going to jump around a bit just to make sure everyone is oriented with this property. So this property is located between Pine and Spruce along 16th Street, right next to Delancey. It's highlighted right here. And to give you a little bit clearer of a view, just to get everyone's bearings, here is where we are situated. The front of the building, this is a fairly recent picture, but there's work to be done and so forth. And I will say this before I finish, I will have the owner who is present, representative of the owner who is present, Mr. Masiri, be able to provide additional information, and hopefully we can answer all of your questions. But what we're looking to propose here is approximately 8 units, 4 of which are 1 bedroom. There are 2 2-bedroom units and 2 studio units. Let me shrink this down a little bit, and hopefully we can get a few pages in here, or a few floors in here for everyone to take a look at. Let me rotate that, make it easier. So essentially there's an addition being put to the rear of the property, which I will. This is an elevation, side elevation view, and there are 2 stories being added to the rear end of the building to increase square footage, which the building part of this application is by right in order to increase the square footage. The breakup of the property is as such. There is 1 unit that carries over 2 floors, but each of the other units are individual, split front and back. So what we're left with is over 7,000 square feet of building after the additions are made. And we believe that this is a better use of the amount of square footage that we have versus the what would be allowed by right, which is only 2 units. And just to put it into perspective, we're working with, my client is a developer who is familiar with the area, who owns properties in the area and has had some successful projects move through this RCO and has had multi-unit, including 8 units approved in buildings nearby. But what's more notable about this client for me is that this is a local client who is invested in Philadelphia, is not an absentee landlord, is a group that is present at all of their locations throughout the process, and has been very, very cooperative with all neighborhoods that it's gone into. They're familiar with the historic nature of things and keep to the character of the neighborhood. And we believe that based upon their experience, as well as just the nature of the neighborhood and these properties located in the area and the size of them, that it would be the highest and best use of the property to carve it up into some similar situation of number of units. And again, we are requesting 8. I'll just skim down through some of the materials. And we have, at this point, we've received a few letters of support from some near neighbors. I think that one actually, yeah. So a few letters of support. Mr. Masiri has been attempting to canvass a little bit more. He has spoken to some people in the neighborhood, and I will let him give you a little bit more detail as to what his efforts were, should there be any question. But for all intents and purposes, it's a very straightforward application, just seeking the approval for the use of the property for 8 units.
Okay. I'm going to go through the committee then and see what the questions are. I'll start with Michelle. You can, okay.
Hi, Janice, yeah, got it. First of all, I just a couple of questions. I wanted to know whether you have a list of all of the neighboring residents that you reached by certified mail, and how many there were, and within what geographic region did you reach out?
Sure. So I can tell you, and I forwarded over to Janice. It's not certified; it's registered mail, but it is in accordance with the RCO notifications. I did send out this notice, which meets the requirements with the refusal and who it goes to, and I provided a list of documentation. But let me show you here if you need to see it. Proof of mailing. So what we had done, there were about 467 notices. that went out, and I think it's just taking a moment to load. But yeah, we have 81 pages of these. So every neighborhood every address that was required on the RCO website for the city, when you put in the address, it provides you with a geographical circle or diameter, and then gives you the list. So we had, like I said, about 467 addresses. These documents were sent to the RCO for further review, and I'm happy to share them again.
Okay. Another couple of quick questions. Have any of the other townhouses, if you will, on that block extended their properties toward the back and built out as you are proposing?
So I will leave that question up to Mr. Masiri, who's welcome to join in if you'll allow him to unmute. He is more familiar with the boots on the ground kind of understanding and the neighboring properties, if so. So I'll let him weigh in on that. I do want to just reiterate that for what it's worth, the expansion to the rear is not something that's before, but we understand that it's relevant because it adds the square footage that we're then seeking to have units in. So Anthony, if you have any comments on that, please feel free to respond to Michelle about neighbors.
Mhm.
I've met with a few of the neighbors on the block, and not many that I'm aware of have expanded the second and third floors as we are proposing. The neighbors on either side of us do have that first floor addition that we do as well.
Okay. I don't have any other questions right now, Janice.
Thanks, Michelle. Bob, you're next.
Thanks, Janice. Hi, Justin and Anthony. My first question is, how many units are in the building now? That may have been said, but I didn't catch it.
Yep. So Anthony, if you want to address how many are currently existing.
Well, the previous owner was developing it as a single family household. What the use was prior to that, legal or otherwise, I'm not 100% sure, because the building is already mostly demoed.
Parked up.
Okay, so you have a single family that you want to expand to 8 units. So by definition, that's going to be a significant impact incrementally for one property in terms of density, parking, and especially light and air when you build up. And if nobody else on that block has done that, I guess I addressed this to Justin as a lawyer. What's the hardship? I mean, why can't this property be used for 1 or 2 units as opposed to 8? Other than making more money, which is not relevant from a zoning variance.
Right, I understand that the economic part of it isn't a factor. It is a factor to us, but it's not a factor for consideration in hardship. Essentially, I think that it's more so where Anthony and his developing group has seen the trends in the neighborhoods and what's desirable for people to live in, that we're not finding as many people desiring such larger units or willing to spend the money. And I'm not talking about money in terms of what the revenue is. I'm just talking about people who are interested in buying or renting in that part of the city. There's a very big dichotomy between those people who can afford the larger entire single family or even larger units versus the young professionals who and starting families that Anthony has and his group have geared their developments towards, that this provides them with a little bit more flexibility to start off in the city and grow. So it's more of a highest and best use kind of issue. And I still understand, we know we're here for a variance, and that the hardship is not as, it's not as glaring as something where there's a dimensional issue that's preventing something here. But again, it is kind of just a hardship that the property seems to call for it from what our discussions have been and our research in the area. And I don't know if Anthony has anything. Yeah, thank you.
Janice, I have no other questions. Thank you.
I'm not sure if I can add just a couple points about some of the other properties that we own nearby that are very similar in nature that I think kind of lend a little bit of relevance.
Please.
Feel
Ann.
free. Yeah, I think it would help. Sure.
We recently completed a project, obtained the CO actually during the spring, right before the pandemic began, at 1707 Rittenhouse Square. Much smaller building. It's around 4,000 square feet. And that one we have 8 units in. Almost fully rented. Again, the lease up process at the end of the year was slow due to COVID, but beautiful project that we completed, 8 units, very similar. Another one is at 238 South 20th Street, so the corner of 20th and Locust. Also 8 units plus a commercial space. And then a third is right around the corner at 1602 Spruce Street. That's 4 units plus 2 commercial spaces. So again, similar sized buildings, all with more units than just 2.
This is Sam Gordon, I'm a co-chair. Those project properties you just mentioned, did you need to get variances because you exceeded the number of units for the area of the building?
I can let our architect, Kevin Kaminsky, speak to one of them, 1707 Rittenhouse Square, which I think is the most relevant here because it's actually a smaller building than what we have proposed here with the exact same units that we're requesting. So I'm not sure if Kevin, if you remember what the issue there was.
Yes, same issue. It was a density issue. We didn't have the number of units that we needed, or we asked for the variance for the number of units.
Thank you.
Sam, you're next if you would like to go.
Okay. So you weren't refused. You have enough open area to do your addition. I know you're not expanding the footprint, but if you don't have the open area, you're expanding a non-conforming use. It's probably for Kevin.
Yes, that is correct.
So your open area does not conform?
I don't believe so. But yes, we are expanding an existing non-conforming. Although actually, I don't have can we go up to the zoning? I don't have control over
We have
my
not
screen.
been refused for that, but
Yes, no, I don't. Let's see, open area permitted is 25. Yes, no, we do not meet the open area requirement.
I guess that is again, not a refusal, but I understand the question.
Yes.
And I guess it's because it's a non-conforming and there's no change to it that they may have
Correct.
gone past that.
they missed it. Gone.
No, they didn't miss that one. There was actually a little bit of a back and forth because there was some miscommunication between the plans examiner and us about the rear yard depth, because the rear yard depth was potentially an issue. They misread the property line as going to the easement, but it extends past the easement, which gives you the depth that you need for it to be an approved non-conforming addition.
Right. So, no, I'm an architect as well. And one of the things I'm looking for in these, and we're going to discuss, has to do with percentage of open area. So the issues that are important to us, one is, the number of units, and that's what you're in front of us before. But the percentage of open area, sometimes we trade one thing for another. So the percentage of open area, if you're not conforming, and which you're not, the existing footprint is not conforming, and you're expanding on that non-conformity by building two more floors on there, or 3?
2 stories, two additions, so 3 in total.
Sorry, I'm just looking at your plans. Oh, you have lower level. Okay, sorry, lower level threw me. Okay. And do you feel, so how would you feel about not doing the addition? If we gave you I have to propose this, because when we go into private session, we have no other chance to come back and ask you for permissions. So how would you feel about receiving the approval to have 8 units if you did not add on to the rear of the building?
Well, that's not a question I
So,
can answer.
yeah, well, I think that's a question for Anthony, but I do have to say, I think that may skew the ability to create, just to go back to it, the ability to create really, it would leave 8 units, but I think that would then put these units as more studio or 1 bedroom, actually probably studio.
The units on your second and third floor would equal the size in the rear, would equal the size of the units in the front. Without
Correct.
congestion to the area. Physical congestion, not number of units.
Understood. It shrinks the square footage of these 2 units here. That would be something I'd have to talk to my client about. I think that more so, there would be a better chance of trade-off. And again, I really do need to discuss this with Anthony, or he can chime in at this point. But I think we would be a little more amenable to leaving the additions, but reducing the unit count to something to 7, if that changes the ratio of some sort. But again, I would want to have Anthony weigh in.
Sam, if I could ask you to interrupt, I mean, that was what I was going to suggest, is that they're only at 1 unit now. And so if they didn't have the addition and we gave them 6 units, or 5 units, or whatever the number is, that might be something that would be more palatable. Sorry.
No, that's good. No, we keep getting caught in this dilemma where we close off our session and then we have things that come up in our closed session, but we need to go back. So one thing, and I'm only speaking for myself, even I'm co-chair, I only have 1 vote. But it's interesting. These have come before us in the past couple meetings where people want to have more units than are permitted by zoning. It's allowing more lower cost units into the neighborhood at a greater density. I understand that, and we've had a lot of discussions about that as a committee, and we're not necessarily opposed to it. But what we have been opposed to in the past is expanding a building and taking up more open area. So Janice is the chair tonight. Maybe we can give you a few minutes to talk on your own. Or let's just finish the questions and we'll get back to it after all the questions.
Let me ask a quick question, and I just want to have some clarity. When you say expanding open area, you're talking about basically the 3-dimensional, because we're going up, because we're not changing the open area of the land or the lot at this point.
He's talking about
Okay, so just space in the air rights in the back.
You're changing.
Okay.
Okay. So why don't we finish the questions? Let Janice do that, and then we'll come back to this before we shut you out.
Yes, but for Justin's, wait, maybe you write these down, because I see 3. There is no variance required when you expand something that's already there. That was changed in 2014 in the new zoning code. So, if you could consider doing 25% of the remaining building, or the other 2 options that got named. And then for sure, we can put you in a breakout room. I'm going to look into that while other folks are asking questions. Who's next? I guess we'll go with Doug.
Muted? Otherwise.
Gotcha.
Was I?
Yes, I'm calling on you, Doug.
I thought I'd unmute.
No, now you're muted. All right, now you're.
So my question was, of all the letters that went out, how many came back in support and how many came back not in support?
So the letters that go out don't ask for support. They're just a notification of this meeting. So we don't get direct responses. As far as my client going and canvassing, you know, I gave him a form and he made his way around a couple of things, including the snow and so forth. Last week did stop him up. We have here we have three letters for support. And essentially, you know, I know he's spoken with more people and would like to continue to do so. For notability, our zoning hearing is not until February 24th. And I do know that Anthony, for those of you on the meeting who have spoken with him, is always accessible and you know, prepared to continue to work with the neighborhood to gather more support or, you know, figure out what the issues may be.
I'd like to see more support from your
Understood.
neighbors.
But doesn't mean we still need to vote on it tonight, but that's,
That was just a statement.
okay.
I'm done.
Thank you, Doug.
Understood.
Thanks very much. I guess we'll go with Ben.
A couple things. I'm kind of curious about the wording of those letters. The two choices were support or do not oppose. Where did that wording come from?
So neighborhood statements of support, it's really a, there's not necessarily a form for it. It is something that I've drawn up in terms of preparing for zoning matters and having, you know, neighbors just either sign on or not sign on. I do recognize, understanding that hearing what Janice had said earlier, that your RCO doesn't necessarily support. It's more of a opposition, non-opposition, or non-opposition with proviso. But I can tell you that what was done in order to obtain these statements is Anthony Messeri would go and would show them the zoning package, the architectural package. So yes, I agree that there's not much choice for either a support or not oppose. There's not much room for opposition. Our understanding is that if someone was in opposition, they just would not have provided us with this.
All right, and one other question, and I just haven't done
Yes.
the math. Under the current zoning, how many units could be in this building, maximum?
And I am going to say, I believe 2, but I'm also going to let our architect just, if I'm wrong, step in there.
I have to look at my zoning sheet. If we can go back to the beginning, I
Just,
believe.
well, and based on the refusal, because we only have 1760 and change square feet, we are then at that point, you know, we're close to that first unit with the 1440.
Yeah.
And
All right.
you know, just short of a more than the 2, I believe. But again, Kevin, if you want to just confirm that would be great.
Yes, it's around there.
Yeah, and I have one more question.
Sure.
I'm going to assume you were fully aware of the zoning requirements when you acquired the property. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Mr. Messeri answered yes. They are familiar with when they purchased. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Ben. All right, we'll go with the Ben number 2.
Actually,
Hey, is that me? No questions. I mentioned earlier a conflict with the owner, so I won't be voting. Just a question for Anthony, which is, I know you're local and, you know, very involved and present in the neighborhood. Tax records show Brooklyn, New York address for ownership. Is that errant? Or
Yeah, good. That's the previous owner, Blueprint Real Estate Investments, whatever. That's part of the issue here is, you know, they bought the property. I've never met them. They bought the property, got in over their heads, left it a complete mess. Windows wide open, skylights wide open, and the owner was never there during the construction process. Whereas we self-perform, as you know, Ben, self-perform, and I manage the projects personally, along with our project manager. So we're going to be present, every day for a year straight. So it's very, very important to us that, everything's executed, and we're familiar with our neighbors, especially with deliveries and loading and trash and all those type of things.
And Mr. Weinrab, I can understand recusing yourself. It makes perfect sense. I would, to the extent that it is not a conflict, I'm more than happy if you want to share good experiences with us. So.
Oh,
Ben, we were going to go back to the first Ben.
yeah.
The second.
Are the other houses on this block all single-family dwellings?
In my review, most of them are rental units. Looks like around 6.
I mean, average of 6 per building?
That's just a quick canvas looking at mailboxes and buttons.
Okay.
What's the cross street? 324 South 16th. What's the cross street, please?
It's 16th and Pine, but it's right next to Delancey.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We'll go on then. We want to call next on Robin.
No additional questions, thanks.
Okay. Veronica.
Thank you. I was curious if you could tell us, if you were to build out these additions that you're talking about, what are the square footage of each of the 8 units that you're planning to put into the building?
So if we take a look here, we have a range between anywhere from the smallest, which is a 405 square foot studio, another 490 square foot studio, but we go all the way up to 760 square feet, which is what the addition helps with, almost doubles the square footage of those units. So there's a mix of square footage, as I'm sure Anthony may mention. He's mentioned to me, but that is kind of akin to some of the other square footages of studios and other apartments that he has had approved. So when doing the design, he made those assumptions that he would come before the board seeking similar size units.
Sure. Thank you. So about 400 to about 760.
Yes.
Thank you. A second question I had was, can you describe if you build out the upper 2-story additions and you fill out the space of that building? What building is behind your building? And how will that impact the space behind the building? I see on the map that there's a building located behind your property.
Yes. So as you can see, it's a large building. Anthony may be able to tell us a little bit more about what it is, but we're basically up against a brick wall.
It's just a clear brick wall there?
Honestly, I'm basing it on what I'm seeing here, not more than that. So I don't want to take any sort of guess. But if anyone has firsthand, if I zoom in,
that's also something I couldn't figure out when I was taking a look at the documents.
Yes, it is a solid masonry party wall.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, we have 2 more. Next is Evan. And since Evan's taking a little bit, I think I'm going to take the slot. Hopefully Evan comes back in a minute. My questions are as follows. Is this building in the historic district? It is? Kevin, you're on mute.
well, the answer is yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes anyway. And that is why I wanted to make it clear that, and for those who have worked with Anthony and his companies, they really take historic into account. I mean, it's not that you can't, but they work on the nuances to keep the character.
So you will be replacing all of these windows and doing the renovation according to the historic district standards?
Yes. Yeah, on the previous project we did, we have all new mahogany windows built by historic approved carpenter.
Thank you.
And then we did a historic approved storefront at 238 South 20th Street, and also worked with historic at 1602 Spruce Street to replace corbels and soffits and things like that.
Will you be replacing the slate roof?
If it needs to, sure.
Yes, it
Yeah.
likely needs to be.
As well as extensive, not extensive, actually the brickwork is in fairly good condition. But a lot of the stonework below the windows and the base is not in great shape. When I spoke with Avi, the next door neighbor, he gave me the name of the contractor that did that work, because obviously his building looks very beautiful, soffit, everything is nice and clean, and all the stonework is excellent. So we would do something very similar there.
Are there any upgrades to the front that you would consider above and beyond what the Historic Commission?
No, we're certainly keep the front door and refurbish that. Refurbish all that lower masonry. We'll have to see if those, if all the wood sills around the windows are usable. But definitely that soffit and all those corbels up there will definitely need some attention to sort of match the building to the right of it.
Great. Evan was having sound issues, but he has put his question in the chat. He wants to know whether or not the immediate neighbors are aware or support the two-story addition. Anthony, when you went around, did you reach everyone that was either side of you and you're two or three houses away?
Yes, I actually met Avi, who lives in the house to the right, several months ago. I'm not sure if you remember Avi. It was when we were looking at the building, and he was kind enough to actually let us in, along with the two brokers that we were with, and to tour his house, which is incredibly refurbished and very beautiful. We'd since closed on the property, and I stopped by there last week to inform him that we had indeed purchased the property, and just wanted to, reintroduce myself and explain to him what we were doing. We discussed the two-story addition, which was his concern, among other things, and had a great meeting with him. And then I called the other gentleman to the left. His name is Dave, but I have not received a call back yet.
Thank you.
I do plan on following up with him as well.
And is there support or no support from Avi?
I'll probably let Avi speak to that.
Avi, are you there?
Yeah, he'll get to ask a question. We'll finish with our zoning committee, and then we have the public ask questions. And
Yes,
then
I just wanted to get Avi's answer to the question that was asked by Evan.
Yes, I met with him, and when I get a chance to talk, I mean, there are provisos, there are issues that I'd love to raise. And the previous use of that building was a single family, and it's been a single family. But, I'd like to ask some questions and raise some issues. So why don't we wait till it's my turn?
Very good. Is there anyone on the committee that I may have missed? Seeing no one, we can now go ahead.
Janice?
Yes.
You didn't miss me, but I just want to ask a question following up on Sam's point. Given that their hearing isn't until February, I know back when I was practicing, I would sometimes go back and look at other situations and then come back to the CCRA or to other community groups. Is it not possible, Sam, that we had to vote tonight? We no longer say to them, can they come back and consider something different? Or is that just not a
they can, for sure, they can withdraw and represent. But I want to hear everybody out that's here tonight.
So in response to that, I do agree, Mr. Lane, that if there is the opportunity and the timing accounts for it, to meet with the neighborhood as many times as is necessary and to account for everything that is raised. There could be that opportunity here. I'm not going to foreclose that possibility since we are in a February hearing date. If the CCRA wanted to add us to their meeting, or certainly we would prefer feedback and an opportunity to continue discussion and or represent versus getting opposition. So a straight opposition. So I do respect and appreciate that opportunity. I'll leave it up to everybody here, but we are, I'm sure my client doesn't mind if that is the will of the association. We would gladly come back with after having considered everything that is presented to us tonight.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, I think we can hear, is there anyone here from the neighborhood that would like to speak about this application? Raise your hand. I'm seeing Avi. He's got two screens on. I thought there were two of you. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I guess one is my late wife, channeling Judith Eden, if any of you knew her. She was head of the zoning board for many years, of the zoning committee of CCRA.
Excuse me, is
But
it
then,
possible to stop share so that we can see each other?
say
Very
it
good.
again.
Thank you, Justin.
No problem.
Oh, okay. So I met with Anthony, and again, the problem is we didn't have a chance to discuss the details, and it's obviously always in the details that the issue comes up. And my preference is that one abutting neighbor is that the apartments stay large enough that they make sense. We've been hounded by B&Bs in the neighborhood, and I want to make sure that, whatever provisos we have, we'll deal with some of these issues. So I think the building up of the back part will definitely intrude on the privacy of my deck, which is on that one floor. None of the other buildings have built back above the first floor. All of that said, the building is in such terrible condition that I think, with a developer like Anthony, I think if he gives us a chance to sit down with the artist, the building behind us is not the relevant building. It's the building to the north of it that will have its sun and light blocked. I will have my privacy and other issues blocked. So I want to make sure there are no decks built on the third floor. I want to make sure that the window arrangement is such that it doesn't affect us. So I think if we can work out the details, the extension of the building, I understand, has to be done to make financial sense. My preference would have been, and I talked to Anthony about it, is to give him the option to go up another floor. The fourth floor is not completed, and all of us really have, from the front 4 floors, we just don't go as far back. And it would certainly be easier for me if he went 4 floors up and didn't go that third floor. But again, that's something we can talk about. And I would really ask them to continue this meeting, to give us a chance to talk to him. And I know the neighbor in the back and next to him is very concerned about the light and the issues of what it does to his apartments that are there. But again, what Anthony proposes is infinitely nicer than the first of the 4 houses in that row and the last of the 4 houses. So I'm obviously torn, and I'd love to sit down with him and make sure that the 4 buildings agree with what he wants to do and how he wants to do it. Otherwise, we can't support it because we don't know about trash, we don't know about the B&B, we don't know about the decks. We need all of these, and obviously there's no hardship here from a legal term. So that's where I am. I think it's just too soon for us to take a position other than no until we can meet with the architect and with Anthony and see what we can do.
Avi, what is your address?
My address is right next door to the building, 329 South 16th Street.
29.
It's a series of 4 buildings that are joined together. They were all built at the same time, right after the Civil War, I think about 1867. And I've rehabbed the building at 329 South 16th Street. And my son, who's in attendance here, lives in 335 South 16th Street, which is a building that we renovated and did a lot of work on and lived in for many years. And he now lives there and owns it. So we have a very significant interest in that block. We own basically half of the square footage on 16th Street between Pine and Delancey. So we're obviously interested.
Thank you, Avi. Jacob, do you have anything to add?
So my big concern, we've been having a lot of trouble with trash. So, once they're over 6 units, what's their plan there? Because they can't have city service.
That's a question.
Yep. So Anthony may be able to discuss this, but typically there is private trash pickup on certain, multi-unit places like this. But trash is obviously always something that's a concern. And Anthony, if you want to explain what your intent is. But before Anthony jumps on to do that, I would like to say that the plan does not have any call for roof decks. I do understand, Mr. Eden, both Mr. Edens, I guess, that is a concern. And I think it would, if there is an ability to do so in short time, sometime, in the month of January, if this matter is being pushed. Like I said, our zoning hearing is not till February. So I think, given the spirit of it, and the way Mr. Masiri works, yes, more discussion with you is relevant and welcome, so that you can get a better handle on your questions. But as far as I know, there's no decks proposed to be outside or outdoors on the roof to block anybody. And trash is something that Anthony is typically cognizant of when designing these, as well as the idea of commercial trash pickup. But Anthony, if you want to speak to that part of it. Unmute, please. Sorry.
Again, I just want to point to the building we just completed because it's so similar in use and size. At 1707 Rittenhouse Square, with dedicated trash room in the basement there, and we have a private trash contractor who picks up once a week, but will come as often as needed. They do trash for several of our buildings. This property, 327 South 16th, we have a dedicated trash room proposed, as shown in the plans in the basement. We do have our own in-house property management company. So if there's ever issues with trash or trash not being picked up, or if, Avi were to call me and say, hey, trash is blowing everywhere because it's windy, we'll send someone there right away, just like we did with the snow after he brought that to my attention, and we rectify things really quickly.
Is there anyone else from the neighborhood that would like to speak? I don't see anyone, just making sure. It sounds to me like you might want to decide whether you want to continue this. That's a applicant decision. If you don't, then we would be voting on it tonight.
Understood.
And if you want us to just give you a few minutes I know you'll have to use other meetings because this meeting is not set up for breakout rooms. And I don't think if you're in the waiting room, you can talk to each other.
That's all right. Mr. Gordon wants to speak before I respond. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Janice, may I speak one more time? And I would like to share a screen. May I, Janice?
Sure.
Okay, can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the property in question. Here's the area that we're talking about building up. Again, I'm one person, but this is what I'm gonna do talk about in a closed session. There's a line here where nobody's built above 1 story. You're asking to fill in this whole space where nobody else is filled in. That's the expansion in volume that I'm concerned about for the volumetric consistency on the block and dealing with the neighbor here and the neighbor there. So if you look at your plans, if you did not add this and this, then you could have another approximately 550 square foot unit here and a 550 square foot unit here, like you have on the second floor front. I know it's not your ideal, but it's something that I would be much more in favor of voting for. I applaud you for renovating this building. I think we need the diversity of lower rents in the building. I think it's consistent with the block. I think the one thing that's majorly inconsistent is this and this, because nowhere else do you see it on the block. And you can respond if you want, but those are what I feel important about.
Sure. And I understand that, and that is something we'll discuss. I guess my question is to the committee is, it is leaning likely that we would, as long as we can assure ourselves that we would be in front of you in the January hearing, and so long as we can meet with you again at your convenience prior to the February 24th, that we would prefer to defer the vote just to have a little more time to discuss. I do want to just ask if outside of this meeting, if we reached out to, say, Mr. Gordon or clearly the neighbor, Avi, but with regard to the committee's concerns, understanding what other options would generate support so that we can actually discuss those without coming back to you with something that has more problems to it. But, for instance, is it a blanket, do not expand the property, or is it, listen, if we asked you if we could go up on the second floor, but not as high on the third? So I don't mean to ask you to give me concrete, definite answers as to what you're going to vote, but I want to be able to bring as many options to my client as possible that may get support.
Justin, I defer to Wade on this, but to correct me if he does not feel that this is the right way to handle this. But I would ask our committee to give some general feedback after this meeting, and then we can give you the general. We can't tell you specifically or guarantee that anybody will do anything, but I think that getting a sense of where people are headed would help you come to the best solution, and that's what we're here for.
Thank you. Thank you.
For myself, I subscribe totally to Sam's analysis. I don't mind a few more units. I do mind.
We're not doing the negotiation now in front of the applicant. Thank you.
Yeah, this is Wade. This is Wade Albert. I'm counsel for Center City Residents Association. I think that the solution that Janice is proposing is fine, and I think that it would make sense for Janice or Sam to send an email to the committee after this, assuming that there's a continuance, and ask for some feedback, and then convey that feedback to the applicant team.
And Janice is the chair this month, so she's.
Okay, and Janice gets that.
We'll confer.
So if I may ask, you are on it's the fourth Tuesday of the month?
Yes.
Okay, so you're set for January 26th. I'm assuming.
January, I'm sorry, just looking now.
Check.
Oh, I'm sorry, for fourth Wednesday. Today's Tuesday. Sorry.
Fourth Tuesday.
It's
January 26th.
Okay. I know I put myself at a little bit of risk here, but Anthony, would you like to talk offline, or are you immediately and it's all right if you want to do that first, or are you okay with a little bit of a brief adjournment?
No, I'm fine. I think we have time to discuss further with everybody. So it makes sense for me, just as long as we can make sure we hit the meeting in February, the zoning meeting.
Okay.
And one quick note about unit sizes. Typically we get in discussions with people about having units that are too small. The previous property that we just completed, as I mentioned, we have a lot of studios that are in the high 300s to 500 range. And I think the best use for units are having larger units. I think a 800 square foot 2-bedroom is just a lot better of a unit than having more tiny studios. I think oftentimes tinier studios will create more issues, or maybe not the best use for the neighborhood from our perspective. That's why we're excited at the opportunity of having a little bit better product mix and having some 2-bedrooms, because I feel like we can market them to a wider range of people. Younger couples have a little bit more space, maybe a young family, something like that.
Thank you.
Is there an opportunity for the community to talk?
Actually, if both Mr. Edens, if you could let us know, if you can contact CCRA and send us your email address,
Okay.
then we can communicate with you as well.
I mean, just to clarify one of my dad's points, a big concern and problem we're having on the block are Airbnbs. Right? That's sort of, and we don't want deluxe luxury Airbnbs with big units. We definitely would be, certainly open to, I like cheaper, more affordable units in the neighborhood. I have 3 units as part of my house, but we're long-term rentals is what we really want to sort of make sure the affordable housing in the area is
I'll
going to
pose
be.
a question. Mr. Messeri, are you, are these going to be long-term rentals, or are you going to do Airbnbs if you can't rent them out?
No, the plan is always long-term rentals.
Yeah, my experience with Anthony is that their business model is not the Airbnb business model. So I don't think that would be a harm to for him to tell you that that's not the intent.
Okay.
Thank you.
The other thing I would clarify is my dad was talking about building up on the 4th floor. The 4th floor in that building, the rear half of it on the existing structure is not built up. I'm pretty sure it's built up on all at 327. I'm sorry, at 329 and 325 as a way to get more square footage, which I think my dad would find less objectionable.
That's actually not the case. 329 is not built up, and 325 may be partially built up. 325 is built up to that back plane. So, okay, Janice.
Let me just clarify, 329, my 329 is built further back than 327. There's plenty of room for him to come back on the existing footprint to expand the 4th floor fairly dramatically. So, but again, we want to work with Anthony. We want to get this done in a way that makes sense to him. And we want to make sure that the committee is happy with the airspace and the rights. And if we can work with him, I'm sure we can come back with something that will be, it won't be perfect for us and it won't be perfect for him, but I think his history and reputation makes me very optimistic that this beautiful structure that's been decimated can be restored. And I'm very panicked about what will happen if this falls apart, because we've had a really terrible experience now twice with the property, and it's a shame. It's a beautiful property.
Thank you. And thanks everyone from the public that has come and from the applicant side. And also Anthony, clearly you take care with your projects, and we were happy to hear from you. And so with that, you can get back to me about what the committee discusses this evening. We'll just have a brief discussion and we'll give you the flavor of it, and we'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. And I will be in touch with you about making sure that we are scheduled for the January 26th. And I'm sure there will be a lot of information exchanged until then. And just curious, Anthony, if there's anyone on this meeting that you need contact information for, you don't have, if they're willing to provide it, or maybe we'll just get it through the CCRA, so somebody doesn't have to give out their phone number in public. But we will reach out to you. We will reach out to you, and we appreciate appreciate the time that everybody took and the feedback that we have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. I think we're good to go. And Kevin, should we? Would you like us to step out?
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
everyone.
Thanks.
Happy holiday.
Are we out too? Is this?
No, hold on.
We're still on?
I'm going to
Okay.
send you to the waiting room.
Are we supposed to be out? Do you need us, or are you going to have a private session?
Oh, we're having a closed session.
So I should leave.
That's right.
Okay,
Although we enjoyed having you. Thank you for coming.
thank you for having us and bye.
Okay.
We're good.
Be sure to turn off the recording also.